Hey there, bold ones. Welcome to another episode of Act Bold. Today on the podcast, I have somebody I'm super, super excited to talk to. His name is AJ Rome. What if I told you that you could stop waiting for someone else to cast you and actually create your own lead role? Maybe even a whole feature film for about the price of a new headshot session? Seriously. This guy is the master of the 1K film, making compelling feature-length movies for just $1,000, often using improv and what he calls reverse engineering the filmmaking process. So without any further ado, AJ, welcome to Act Bold.
Well, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, good, good. I reached out to you because I had seen somewhere that you do this 1K film. And
Yeah.
so tell me like the origin story of that.
Yeah, I kind of always wanted to be an actor, since I was about 12. I guess about 8 was when I realized acting was a profession. By 12, I had my first audition for a talent scout, and I wasn't able to actually move out to LA until I was 20, which was 20 years ago this year, for
Mhm.
context, for anybody listening. Um, and I got into the rat race and the just falling on your face over and over again and not having mentors and not, having the money to go to classes indefinitely and or film school or anything like that. So I got into production work. I was a PA for 3 years on indie films, and I basically just learned the process of making films. And after about 5 years, I realized you don't really make it very far if you're not trying to produce your own thing. And so about 5 years after that, so now we're 10 years in to my journey, I finally started booking some really big stuff. But that still was kind of like small roles in big things, which just wasn't, I think probably all of us have the goal of being like a lead in the thing that we're working on and not like the guy who's like, here's your coffee, sir.
Right.
And so you go, you spend thousands of dollars on headshots and acting classes and stuff to get these little roles where you do something little with maybe somebody well known. And I was super grateful to have those experiences, but I had known since I got into the industry that I wanted to write and direct as well. And so my wife, then girlfriend, and I were sitting on the couch one day, and we were watching a YouTube video from Mark Duplass, and it's called "The Cavalry Isn't Coming," and it was a South by Southwest talk in like 2013 or
Hmm.
something. And so then he kind of lays out the 8 steps that you're going to take to basically grow your career. And one of those steps was make a feature film with your friends for $1,000. And he kind of just like laid it out on the table, kind of broad strokes like that. Make a feature film for $1,000. And so we took that and we ran with it. We took out a credit card for $2,000 and spent every penny. We asked kind of the 2 most talented actors in our acting classes if they wanted to be a part of it. And uh, like I said, most actors want lead roles in things.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
although we didn't have the money to pay somebody to, come on and do it for SAG rates or any of that, um, they said yes, and
Hmm.
we made a movie in 5 days with 4 people, improvised dialogue. We did have a very strict outline script, so we knew what we needed from every scene, which kind of gives you the freedom as an actor to really play
Yeah.
within each scene. But then you end up shooting the equivalent of about 20 pages a day, and yeah, and then we returned
So how
for
long did it
anybody.
take to shoot that first film?
Yeah, 5 days.
5
It
days.
was a
You did it in
5-day
5
shoot.
days. Wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have so many questions. So finish your story and I hope I remember them.
No, jump in. Please jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something, I mean, did you already have the idea for your feature film, or it was like you were inspired by watching the Duplass brothers and then you were like, okay, what could we write?
Yeah,
What was the origin? How did that happen?
the Duplass brothers were big inspirations for us because they made what did they say? They make sensitive films about people talking or something like that. Um, which was nice because it's sort of, you can watch their filmography and not be wooed by spectacle. You're really just in with grounded conversations, watching people sort of deal with life. And that gave us the inspiration. I see a lot of pitches these days from people that come through One Grand Film, and they've all got 40 or $100 million ideas, but they've never made anything before. And it's impossible to get those ideas picked up until you've made other things. So we knew that our first film, Go Crazy, Go Mad, which is our first $1,000 film, was simply to get on the ladder and start, a process where you could sort of leverage up. But the first step in all of that is proving that you can, first of all, execute and finish a story, but then make, a long form story. So a lot of people are out there making short films or sizzle reels or music videos or things like that, but it's really hard to build a career off of kind of small, unmonetizable content.
Sorry for the interruption, but hey, look, we got to talk follow-up for a sec. You meet that casting director, agent, or awesome collaborator, you have a great chat, you send your materials, and then crickets. Sound familiar? Listen, if the thought of follow-up makes you feel awkward or spammy or just completely stumped on what even to say, you are definitely not alone. So many talented actors I know let amazing connections fizzle out simply because they don't have a solid, authentic follow-up game plan. They're stuck. Here's the thing. Following up isn't about being annoying. It's about building real relationships. It's about staying top of mind in a way that feels genuine, not desperate. You know what I mean? And because I know that this is a huge sticking point for so many actors, I'm hosting something special just for you. It's my free 5-day live follow-up challenge. It's called Follow Up or Fade Out. Yep, totally free. And we do it live together over 5 days. I'm going to give you super simple, actionable steps, a clear system to take the guesswork and the cringe out of following up. We'll cover what to say, when to say it, and how to do it authentically. Plus, because it's live, you can ask me your specific questions in real time and get unstuck right then and there. So, no more wondering alone. So stop letting those connections go cold. If you want to finally nail your follow-up strategy, build those crucial industry relationships, and get your questions answered directly by me, you need to be in this live challenge. So just head over to actboldtraining.com/5-day-follow-up-challenge. I'm going to put that in the link below, don't worry. It'll take like 30 seconds for you to sign up. Seriously, grab your spot now while you're thinking about it. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
So
Yeah.
we just took what we had. We had our apartment, we had our car, and we had Big Bear, which was a frequent getaway for us. And it was only about 2 hours away from where we were living in LA, in Sherman Oaks. And we knew that shooting in LA was expensive. So we shot a little bit of it. We shot it all chronologically. So we, start in our apartment and we go on this trip into Big Bear. And we built the story around what we had, which was basically 4 actors and, very sparse locations and cheap cameras, and made something that we absolutely love and still get a lot of love for today, 9 years later.
Wow, amazing. So, okay, so was it an idea that you already had, though? Or was it an idea? No. Okay.
It was a reverse engineered idea. I think it was actually my wife's idea, that the story itself, but it was basically just.
So what's the log line? Give me the log line.
A couple in their 30s who are sort of on their like shit or get off the pot moment, get married or
Right.
don't, go on a trip to nature to de-stress, and their relationship unravels, and they meet a couple of other people.
Love it.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, okay. What kind of genre?
We call it a romantic dramedy.
Love that.
There's a lot of comedy stuff in there, but it's
Okay.
got that kind of romance side to it.
Yeah. Okay. And because I'm always, right, also thinking like in terms of, these are the stories that interest me anyway, are the small stories, the big things that happen in our small lives, right? the
Yeah.
moments, the relationships. That's what interests me anyway. So that's not a big stretch to do that. I've never been really interested in making these huge kind of films. And I find that I sort of have this running collection of these one location, small cast films in my head, right? So the most recent one was the one with Dakota, not Dakota, what's her name? Yeah, Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn in the car.
This
I
one
think
yet?
it's called
Oh, I
Daddy-O.
haven't seen that one. Okay.
It takes place in real time. She gets into a cab from JFK and he takes her to his apartment and there's a delay on the bridge, very
Yeah.
very of the moment. And it all takes place in real time and it's just kind of like conversation that happens between these two. And that's it, really. But it was good. I watched it on a plane, but it was really good. And I'm trying to think. There are so many. Well, Phone Booth was another great one, even
Yeah.
though
Phone
that
booth,
was
Lock. Lock was a Tom
another
Hardy.
in the car.
Barry
Yeah,
with Ryan Reynolds, where he's
true.
stuck in the grave. Yeah,
Phew.
or
Can you
buried
imagine?
alive.
Yeah.
Nope.
No,
Don't
me
want to.
neither. No, that would not be a role I'd be happy to be taking.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think the stark difference between the types of movies we're talking about and the type of movie that we try and make at One Grand Film is a lot of those films can end up feeling like, oh, we can't leave the taxi cab or the phone booth or so that becomes sort of the mechanism of the film is
The one
don't leave this
location.
location.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I challenge people to do is take maybe 5 locations that are all close together. You have access to them. So if you've got an uncle who owns a bar and, a friend who owns a Trans Am and, you can get a hotel room for $100 down the road. Now you've got your kind of fundamental locations and how can you build the story around those. And so it's also about knowing who your actors are
Yeah.
and trying to have them in place early on so you can actually write around the actors rather than write some, Oscar worthy role and then hope to cast it and usually fall short because Oscar
Mm.
worthy actors are usually busy. Um,
Yeah. So
so
that's
it'll
a
allow
really
for the
good tip.
performance to be really nuanced if you write around the actor and you know what their strengths are rather than doing it the other way around. So really the One Grand Film method is sort of reverse engineering the filmmaking process so you've got a strong story, you've got the locations you need, you're not like
But
overextending
how can
yourself.
I just
Yeah.
if you're starting with the story, it's like which comes first, the chicken or the egg, the story or the actor?
I reverse engineer. So I would say the egg comes first.
So that's the
Um,
actor or
Yeah, well, I would say so. I derive the story from what I know I have access to. So for me, because I have a deep pool of actor friends, I'll say I'd like this person, and this person to be in this movie, and
Mhm.
then I know their strengths, and then I say I want to use this location, this location, this location. So from Go Crazy Go Mad, we made N Trip. N Trip is my first solo debut feature film. um, we fundraised for that because we made Go Crazy Go Mad, so we were able to basically go out with proof and say, hey, look at what we made, we're trying to do this again but on a little bigger budget. We also I just started realizing like how much genre matters in the commercial viability of a film. So comedy's really hard to sell, especially if you don't have names, but the horror fans out there will watch any horror movie and you don't
Yeah.
have to have names. So that was sort of the new iteration on the One Grand Film from the first one was, okay, let's wrap it in a genre that more people will, inherently see. And so
Right.
that's where End Trip came from. But again, that was reverse engineered. It was like, I want it to be horror. I had heard about this camera that could shoot at night. I was
Mm.
driving Uber
Oh wow.
and I came home one night at like 3 in the morning and crawled in bed with my wife, and she just sort of always took for granted it was me at 3 a.m. And I just had the thought, what if it wasn't me?
Oh
What would have had
wow.
to have happened for this person to be climbing in bed that isn't me? And that's kind of what spawned End Trip. So it was still reverse engineering, going Uber, car, mistaken identity, some sort of maybe serial killer in the horror genre, but it's still going to be improvised dialogue. It's still going to be few locations, things we know we have access to. And so that's kind of how we leveled up from the $1,000 film to the $50,000 film. And then these two films above my head, these are hard drives back here. Those are both like $250,000 films that I just finished writing and directing. So it works to like really level up. That's kind of the goal here that I set out to do with the $1,000 film. And that's what I teach other people to do.
So you just did the $1,000 film before you leveled up.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I was going to ask you how many $1,000 films you've done.
Yeah, well, I've done one for myself, and then I've helped a few friends make theirs. And then the idea of the $1,000 film doesn't necessarily need to be $1,000. It's basically the idea that you only use what you have access to. So when I took this to a friend of mine who is a script supervisor in Cologne on one of the biggest crime procedurals in Germany.
Here in Germany. Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, called Wilsberg.
Okay.
Yeah, she's been a script supervisor on that show for 20 years.
Wow.
She had gone to film school. She had won all these awards for the short films that she had made, but they wouldn't let her make a feature. And they wouldn't let her direct an episode of the show that she had worked on for 20 years, despite having petitions signed from all the cast and crew asking to let her
very bureaucratic.
Yeah. And we learned it's like it's hard for women in the US. It's even harder for women in Germany. And I'm sure other countries are even harder than that. But we met at a film festival for N Trip, and I saw the production value that she was able to assemble for a short film she made. And I was like, why haven't you made a feature? And she said, well, I can't fundraise. Nobody will give me access to anything. She's like, I can't even direct an episode of the TV show that I've been working on forever, that she could do in her sleep at this point.
Right.
And so we brought her the same tools and we said, let's make it like this. And she made a film called Sunny that my wife and I starred in. And again, she had access to things. So like,
was that in Germany or was that in Texas?
Yeah, that was all in Germany.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we went out in 2019 and shot about 80% of the film. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And then we had a baby the following year. And then we were able to go out in 2022 to finish. And that film was finished last year and it's being submitted to festivals. But that one looks like a $2 million film. I mean, we had trucks given to us by Aerie and gear. And I mean, we were traveling all over the German countryside and made this post-apocalyptic thriller using the exact same like foundational kind of methods that we used for Go Crazy, Go Mad. So it's scalable and it can work in a lot of different levels. And so that's why I don't want to limit to like, oh, it's just got to be one location or
right.
It's like it can get bigger if it needs to.
Yeah. No, I've heard that before. It's just, thinking in terms of what is easy, right? And of course, there has to be a reason for everything, right? You can't just, as you were saying earlier, that it can get sticky because they can't leave the room. But if that becomes a motivated reason, house arrest or whatever prison, whatever it may happen to be, then those things can make sense. Or like they did with Telephone Booth, which, I mean, it wasn't just the one location, but for the character, it was the one location because he couldn't leave the telephone booth without possibly being killed.
That was a sniper, right?
It was a sniper, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland played the sniper, and I can't remember his name. He was in Bruges.
In Bruges, yeah.
In Bruges.
Colin Farrell?
Yeah, Colin Farrell was the one in the telephone booth.
Yeah.
But, okay, so the other thing that really fascinates me is doing a film all improv. So I find that, this kind of work comes up in workshops a lot, right? Where you're diving into the character and creating backstory by creating scenes that, all of that kind of, and it can get so juicy and so emotional and so real and so raw. And I think that's amazing. That's gold when you can capture that. So how much do you outline? Is it like just the backstory, the objective, what what does that look like?
I basically take uh Dan Harmon's story circle, if you're familiar. It's a
Was it the
structural.
eight? Eight?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
The 8 points.
exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
8 points.
And start to flesh the story out based on that. And so then I know I've got all of the kind of mechanisms that make for a good story. And then I develop characters that fit in that world in a specific way. So if it's try and find a lot of contrasts. So if you've got, like, for Go Crazy Go Mad, for example, my character is like a tech blogger and is more comfortable behind a computer than in nature. So as soon as I put that character in nature, a lot of natural conflict can happen because he's uncomfortable with bugs, he gets tired easily, things like that.
Love that. Yeah.
And so as far as the story goes, or what the script looks like, it's basically a full script without any dialogue. And
Mhm.
so we actually color coded each scene, basically dependent on how our characters were getting together, like emotionally, how they were interacting emotionally. So the scenes that were red were like, oh, we're really red hot, we're close, everything's great. And then it would sort of go from orange to yellow to green. And like, that's when things are going wrong, going off the rocks. And then eventually blue. And it was like, we were so ice cold with each other that we knew. So we could visually just look at the script and look at the color and go like, okay, so this is where my character's starting.
That is so smart, AJ. I love that.
Oh, thank
That's a
you.
great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful as an actor to be able to just look and get that visual cue right away of like
Mm,
where your character is starting from in a
yeah.
scene. You would always know, the beauty of shooting chronologically is you already know where you're coming from and where you're going to. So now you're just bridging the gap in that scene. So you know the objective of that scene is to get from one place to the next. Sometimes you might have one line of dialogue that you know you need to hit in that scene, or one key thing that needs to happen. And so you're just sort of naturally trying to get there with your scene partner, which is a really cool way of working. And then on top of that, having two cameras roll so you can basically get coverage of both actors. And the challenge with improvisation is the story kind of can go like this.
Yeah.
And when you're working on a normal script, it's linear and you're saying the same lines every time. So, when you get into the edit, you're just trying to find the best iteration of that line. With the improvised style, it's actually really nice because you might find 10 different ways through one scene and you've got the flexibility to find that. And so different little things that might pop up, little magic moments that might enhance your story, can happen through these improvised films rather than, oh, I'm supposed to cry on that one line, or that all the traps that we fall into as actors when we read the stage direction
Mm-hmm.
on a
Mm-hmm.
script. Those things aren't there. So yeah, having two cameras roll at the same time allows you to make sure that you've got coverage of both actors in the edit, and then you roll for 15, 20 minutes. I've been the writer, actor, and director in the couple of movies that I've made this way.
How
So
was that?
I'm able to direct people in the scene and kind of steer the conversation. So you're kind of first person and then third person sort of directors standing outside of you going like, does this make sense for the edit? Is this emotionally in the direction that I want to go? But it allows you to just like, let's pause, let's back up. Remember that thing you said about that guy in the truck. Let's go with that instead of this other thing. And so you can just sort of self-edit in the moment, which
Oh,
takes,
wow.
a little bit of
Yeah.
getting used to. But yeah, it's very powerful. I mean, I would recommend it to any actor that's trying to get out there and do bigger and
Do
better
that.
things and really showcase, lead roles.
Absolutely. I have two questions. One is about pre and one is about post-production. But so when you're in pre-production and you're planning the story, do you involve the other actors at that point? What would asking them like what their objectives are, what their super objectives, those kind of things, or backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way that these films work the best is if you have a lot of time for chemistry sessions beforehand.
Hmm.
Uh, I like to think of it like a mountain. and you're trying to climb the mountain, and the stage direction is kind of the handholds. So, you know, structurally for the script, this has to happen for me to climb to the top of the mountain. But the mountain itself is backstory. Oops, sorry. The mountain itself is backstory. So that's all of your actors really understanding where they're coming from before this story happens, how their life is being affected by the story in the moment. And because if you don't do that, then everything sounds really surface. And all the actors are only kind of engaging with the things that are physically with them in the moment. Like, oh, I need to get in this car. It's hot outside. I should turn the air conditioner on. You know, it's very surface, like things they can see and feel right now, rather than deep backstory, emotional resonance with characters and things that they've done together before, and all of the things that would happen naturally in somebody's life, which is always the job of an actor, you know, whether you're scripted or not. This just gives you a lot more opportunity to flesh that stuff out with your actors in pre-production.
So how long do you normally take to, are you rehearsing, or are you just sort of?
I don't rehearse any of the scenes that will be in the movie itself, but I'll rehearse things that may lead up to those, or things that might happen in between those moments. So that way what the camera is capturing is the raw, authentic conversation in that moment.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. That way we're not coming to set doing something we've already done, all the while the actors like subconsciously wink at each other. Yeah, exactly. We said it like this last time, remember? And then it feels really kind of stifled and not organic.
No, I love that. That's super smart. And when you say you set up the two cameras, did you have DOPs working with you, or did you just set up your own cameras on tripods?
Yeah, I would highly recommend 2 camera operators.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're locked into, you know, a wide shot that maybe you can't really move around in or doesn't look very pretty. There's something about that kind of cinema verite style handheld that works really nicely with an improvised film, because if the camera operator can follow the actor in the moment while they're making decisions, lends itself to the audience's experience being a lot more visceral. Like, I'm attached to the character that I'm watching, rather than, well, don't go out of focus, don't lean too far forward.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we didn't quite put the camera in the right spot for this scene, but you're going to watch it play out here anyway.
So it's going to be like from your chin down.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, you don't have eyes for this. Interesting choice. Yeah, it's nice to just know as an actor, and I lean on available light. You know, I lean more on composition and understanding. Yeah, how to frame a shot to make it look like it's lit intentionally, more than, all right, let's take 2 hours to light this scene, or to light this, you know, angle, and then stop and take another 2 hours to relight for the coverage. It's like, let's just shoot what's here. But it helps to have camera operators that understand lighting and composition, because that just actually makes it look intentional.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you keep the camera operators from staying out of each other's line of vision if they're moving around?
Having both of them on Zooms, and having them really understand the 180 rule, knowing that, you know, if my eye line is left to right this way, then the opposite character is left to right, which basically keeps both camera operators on one side of the actors.
So nobody's
ever going to dip into somebody's scene.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'll generally have somebody on a little bit wider of a frame and somebody on a closer frame. That way you've got variation too, and it's not just close up, close up, close up, close up, close up.
Yeah.
Because then the audience gets to understand the geography of the scenes that the actors are walking around in, which just makes for a better viewing experience also, if they're not going, wait, how are they both sitting in the same chair at the same time? Which can get pretty confusing if, you know, the cameras aren't in the right spot.
Right. And for post, were you editing as well?
Yeah, so we did the rough cut. And we learned, I don't think my wife and I ever intentionally like set out to be editors. We learned it through necessity. We made a web series. That's a whole story in itself, but we made a web series in LA and ended up kind of hiring and firing a lot of people when they just didn't have the same kind of artistic vision or drive that we did, or work ethic. And we learned how to edit. And so we sat down with uh, five days worth of footage, 2 cameras. So, I mean, a fair amount. I think we were probably about 5 terabytes or so of footage, on, a Canon 6D. So like not even, Arri Alexa, we can shoot 40 terabytes in a shoot, but, it's pretty daunting to sit down with that much footage. But
Yeah.
yeah, you just find the most, uh, interesting moments that happen and cut those together and, cut out all of the stuff that doesn't work. And we handed those off to a couple of editors who cleaned everything up for us and,
Oh,
did color
amazing.
grading and
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
design and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we learned how to do kind of all of it ourselves. And now I'm editing, um, my first like kind of big film.
Mm.
And so it's all just, I don't know, skills I would tell everybody, like, go out and learn. Like, it just makes you more powerful in your career if you know how to do everything. And so at this point, I shoot, I can light a little bit, I edit, I write, I direct, I act,
Yeah.
and it just makes it so you have a lot more power in your own career.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I can imagine though. I mean, even just from, some of the short films that I've shot, just trying to edit them, it's just crazy. It's overwhelming. So,
Yeah,
and what were you using, like DaVinci or Adobe, or what were you?
I've been on Premiere Pro kind of since the
Okay.
beginning.
Yeah.
I've drawn my whole life also, and I've used Photoshop for years and years, so Adobe just sort of fit naturally for me. But
Okay. Yeah.
for people in my program, if they haven't started editing on something yet, I'll generally push them to DaVinci since it's free and you can have like a, full kind of Hollywood standard editing suite for basically
Nothing.
free without, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, if you're missing some of
Yeah,
the frills that you probably wouldn't know to use anyway. So
exactly.
yeah, if you're editing
Exactly.
your first film and it's people talking and natural lighting, like you don't need a lot. You're not doing VFX or any of that crazy stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's good enough for
Mm.
sure.
Are you integrating AI into your filmmaking at this point, or is this something you're thinking about?
I I'm very, very split on the topic of AI.
Yeah.
I use it every day to ideate and help me
Mm.
write sales copy and things like that. I run ads for my program and,
Right.
um, make landing pages and stuff like that. But as far as the artistic process goes, I'm a firm believer that people show up for the artist themselves. So I'm
Okay.
only going to go see a film if I'm interested in the artist that made it. Just like you think about musicians, like you buy every album of the musician that you like, and you can't wait for that next thing to come out until there is an artist using AI to create compelling films, and I can follow that artist who's using AI. I'm not interested in watching anything that's been made with
Mm.
AI. And
Huh.
I see a ton of it, but it's also because it's coming for artists' jobs. I think using it as a tool in specific scenarios is how far I've gone with it so far. As far as actually integrating it into a film I've made,
I don't mean
it's
as a
it's
character.
no,
That's
no, no.
definitely not what I mean. Yeah.
No, it's a huge gray area, because
It
it's not,
is. Yeah.
you can use it to enhance VFX. You can use it as a tool,
Exactly. Yeah.
but what people are, I think thinking about using it is completely replacing
Replacing.
the
Yes.
filmmaking
Yeah.
process. And that's the part of it that I'm
Against.
against.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Me too. But I also, you and I are both in business as well as being actors. So yeah, I
Yeah.
also use it all the time. All the time. I don't think there's a day
Yeah.
that goes by anymore that I don't use it.
And
And
it's so valuable and so dangerous at the same time. It's so hard. And we're not stopping it.
no.
I think that's the thing that I have to remind myself of all the time is, the holdouts that thought the internet was like not gonna, like, no, I'm gonna be a phone book person for the rest of my life.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
taxi cab drivers when
Right.
Uber came around, like
Yeah.
it's like you're not stopping it. And so we can embrace it and we can start paddling with the wave and hope that it doesn't bowl us over. And I think that's where I'm at, is I'm trying to stay up with everything, but not undo my own career at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, both, your metaphors, they're very on the nose, but they're also taxis haven't died out.
Right.
You know, Airbnb came along, but hotels are also
Hotels
still
still
around.
exist.
Yeah. So maybe that will happen in this new frontier that we are, you know, on the edge of right now with AI. I
Yeah.
certainly hope so, because, you know, the whole point is to help us, not replace us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know it is replacing people. I know, for instance, I was having a conversation with one of the actors that I just worked with, and he said he's had a friend working at Fox, formerly Fox, but now Fox Disney, for years, and their job was basically just to come up with ideas for TV shows.
Mm.
So it was like, you know, this log line, this character does this, and this person does that, and they would just spit out. That was their job every day. And there was a team of like 20 that worked within, and now they've got one person using like ChatGPT to do those 20 people's jobs. And so that is an unfortunate case of AI better. It doesn't need to sleep. It,
Yeah.
you know, it can churn out an infinite number of ideas. You just keep hitting that button, and every 10 seconds you've got, you know, 40 different TV shows if you want.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
mean, some are better
it'll be
than
an
others,
interesting.
but every once in a while it does come up with some pretty clever stuff.
Yeah.
So,
It's good to, yeah, it's good for ideation. That's what I use it for. You know, if I need, if I'm stuck in writer's block and I need, you know, 10 different ways a character could engage with, you know, a challenge, great. I can go through that. I can wait for it to maybe come up with something. And maybe I don't even use one of those 10 ideas, but it spurs that,
it's
you know.
exactly, it sparks something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also now there are these editing programs that are starting to use AI. So right now they're more for this kind of a thing, for a podcast. But I'm
Yeah.
sure it's coming, which if you're a single filmmaker, it makes sense, right? Because you weren't
Yeah.
going to hire a huge editing
Right.
team anyway.
Right.
Or the FX, you know, that's another thing. You're talking about a horror film. What, you know, instead of getting a $1,000 smoke machine, you know, right,
Yeah.
per day, you can just sort of create that effect. Or yeah, there are a lot of things that you can do with it that are really, really interesting. Enhance the sound, create sounds. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot. It's fascinating. It's also scary to realize the potential and the possibilities. And it's exactly that also makes it scary.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's still, you know, there right now it is a tool. You can't just, you know, attach it to a hard drive and say, edit this film. You know, here's the script, edit this film, do it in the style of Ari Aster, you know, yet. And so there's still human artistry attached to the tools, which is great. Like right now in Adobe Premiere, you know, if a shot ends, you can extend the frames out and it will take the existing frames and make that shot longer if you need it. I'm like, okay, we didn't get enough of that shot. You know, we got 40 extra frames of that person blinking or whatever it was. Cool. As soon as it becomes like just prompt an entire sequence
And
and
now
hear
she
the
cries.
thought come out of
Yeah.
her mouth also, then that's
Yeah.
where it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
you know, that's where it's like, where's the line? Or it's so blurry.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Well, honestly, you know, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I'm not, the Marvel world is great for people who are into that. I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
And so for people who want to watch cartoon characters fighting, you know, these hypothetical
Bigger
do or die
cartoon
things.
characters. Yeah.
Exactly. Then maybe, you know, I could see AI doing that because they're not real people anyway, right?
Right.
They're these superheroes. They are cartoon characters. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, you know, and it just depends on how good it gets. But that is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah. It's interesting
Yeah.
because I'm in post on 2 films, and my post-production budget is going to people that are going to do the physical work.
Mm.
You know, I can definitely see the world where studios go like, all right, we need, like you're saying, like 3,000 VFX shots. and then they hand it to a VFX vendor, and that vendor has AI tools to make their job easier, to lighten the
Right.
load on the physical people. Great.
Or
Okay,
maybe
cool.
you want a drone shot flying over the Grand
Yeah.
Canyon, but you can't hire a drone or whatever it is. I mean, it definitely
Yeah.
has its place. It
Yeah.
definitely does. Yeah.
Yeah. There are applications that I see it making sense, but I think also I see a world where a seal will exist, a human made only seal. And like the hipsters
Mm,
out there
mm,
listening to
mm.
records,
A
like I like
verified
the
type of thing.
analog
Yeah.
version. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I could see that made by humans only being a necessity and being something that people, will only go see in the theater. And of course, not everybody. It's going to be there's going to be a hard division. And I know there are AI film festivals already. I
Oh,
see
wow.
AI short films and stuff all the time and sizzle reels. And unfortunately, so I've made my living for the last 5 years in the commercial space because I learned filmmaking and I learned how to do it really cheaply so I could bring that to companies and make commercials and make a pretty good living off of that. But now I was also on this last set just shown a bunch of different high-end spec commercials that were made through AI that were just purchased outright directly from the companies to use as ads. And they're completely made by AI. And they, would have cost 200,000 to $500,000 of real people doing real work to make the equivalent commercial. And
Yeah.
I guess the question is, would they have gone and made that commercial, or is it just cheaper for them to buy the AI version
Mm.
on top of the physical productions that they'll continue to do? It's like that's where things get, the commercial industry could disappear in the next.
Yeah. Well, I think
It's
the Christmas Coke commercial was done with all
yeah,
AI.
yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit. So you had mentioned your first film was 1,000, the second film was 50, and after that you were up to $250,000. So fundraising in America is very different than in Europe. In Europe, there are a lot of, there are a lot of places you can get money for
Yeah.
films. Although were you counting that film that you did with the script supervisor here?
No, no, no.
No.
That's
Okay.
that's her
Okay.
project, and she kept 100% ownership, and we're just actors in that one. My
Mm,
wife and I. We did a Kickstarter for that, and I think she raised about $15,000. I
mm.
know she's put some of her own money into it beyond that, but she went big. She went for post-apocalyptic thriller, like, end of days, planes, crashing to the ground and
Wow.
zombies. And I mean, it's pretty impressive for what she spent, because
Yeah.
I know what she spent, and it's way less than what, a distributor might pick it up for.
Right.
Um,
Well, good
but
for
yeah,
her. I'm glad to
yeah,
hear that. The
yeah,
talent
me too.
here is really, really strong. The
Well,
film
and
schools, yeah.
she got her two first TV show directing jobs on two of the longest running German shows in history. She got to direct 2 episodes of that directly from this film that she made. So just that ability to kind of make the thing that helps you scale up to the thing you're aiming for is the whole
Yeah.
purpose for doing this.
Yeah. I love that. So tell me about your course. What does that
Yeah.
look like? How long does it take to learn how to make a film? Is the idea to kind of learn about it and then go do it, or do you have them up and running? So many questions, I know.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you ask. So I'm reapproaching how it works as we speak.
Mm,
So for the last year and a half, it's just been sort of at your own pace, weekly calls. There's a full course involved. So you've got, everything from the writing process and film kind of, not total film theory, but film strategy. I like to call it career strategy because I think it's just a big uh, missing cornerstone of most people's thought process when they think about building a film career, is like, what is the strategy to get there? And so I like to build that in. Like, what is the purpose of making this film? What is your through line as an artist that people are going to show up for over and over again? When I go see a Christopher Nolan film, I can tell it's a Christopher Nolan film, whether it's his $6,000 feature Following that got him started, or, Dunkirk. Like, he makes films in the same way. So what is the artistic mechanism? What is the unique mechanism that every artist coming into the platform has? And that's the thing that, like, your audience is going to want to show up for again and again. So making sure your story is tied into something that's actually super meaningful to you and not just like, I had this cool idea or I had this dream about this guy who played tennis and now I want to make a tennis movie. It's like, but how does that touch you here? How do you talk about that 20 years from now and still find the love of what drove you to make that tennis movie? That's kind of like early phase.
Okay.
And then I walk people through the writing process. And so it's effectively, like I said before, writing an entire script, only losing the dialogue side of it and leaving that to the actors. And then we go through a process of finding collaborators that are going to come and work on your project for free in exchange for the opportunity to have their first feature film under their belt as a DP or a sound designer or an actor or whatever that might be. So it's really finding collaborators that are on the same level as you that need the same opportunity. And it's not about the day rate. I'm never telling somebody go approach a $1,200 a day DP and ask them to work for free on your film. I'm not asking anybody to do that. And what I've seen over and over again is
If the story's good enough, they just might. I know
That's
several
true.
who would be open to doing that. So,
And if they
yeah,
make a good enough living that they don't need
right.
to come on for the money, then absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the one who shot the German film, she's Lars von Trier's camera operator. Like,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah, she ended up DPing our film. So absolutely, there are people that are like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've got skills and access, and that's why he gave us an entire rental truck and two Alexas and a whole Panasonic lens package, specifically because,
Oh,
like you
who
said, we
was
found
your
a DP
DP?
that,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
she was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is awesome. Let's do this,
Yeah.
and it looked incredible because of it. So we go through the writing process. We go through finding all the collaborators, the actors, cast, and crew that are going to work on your film. And then I like to just schedule a shoot date and say, I want you shooting by this day. So it's more of a ready, fire, aim because we can overthink things and we can think
Totally.
like forever and never actually take action. So if you put a shoot date out into the foreseeable future and everybody knows that's a date, then things will naturally happen.
Mhm.
And I'm a big believer in the what is it? Parton's law.
What's
Work
that?
expands to the time allotted.
Okay.
So if you
True.
give yourself
Yeah.
3 years to make a film, you're going to take
Right.
all 3 years. But if I
Yeah.
tell you you've got to shoot something next weekend,
Yeah.
you're going to get only the essential things done that need to happen between now and when you start shooting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
so
how
that's
long
the
is
way I
the
like to drive
course?
people. So up until now, it's been a year. I've
Okay.
given people a year.
So that's the time frame. They start and then they shoot their film after the year, or is it during that they're shooting as well?
During. But let me
During.
tell you now, and this hasn't even been launched. Right now, I'm talking about it for the first time publicly. I haven't even done my own
Oh,
ads about
okay.
this yet.
This is an exclusive, people.
Exclusive. Yeah. We're film in the can in 90 days.
Wow. I love that. That's amazing.
So come into the
So
program, create the film, develop the story, make a bulletproof script, find your collaborators, your cast and your crew, set your shoot dates, and actually shoot your film all in the first 90 days.
love it. That
Because
is,
there's no reason to take longer than that.
yeah.
I call it a low stakes, high reward film because
Mm,
you're not going out asking all your, high value contacts for their money. So you're
right.
spending almost nothing to make your film. If it's terrible, you don't release it. You just
But
move
you
on.
learned a lot. I mean, there's no
Learned
losing. There is no
everything. Yeah,
losing. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And in the process, you learn all of the skills necessary to take control of your career and do it again and again if you want to.
Yes.
So after Go Crazy Go Mad, after End Trip, we learned of this little loophole in the Emmys, the short form series competition. Almost nobody was taking advantage of this. So we met a guy who'd actually won an Emmy based off a short form series, aka a web series.
Oh.
And
okay.
so we, in 6 weeks from pre-production to post-production, 4 of us came on and as producers. We each put $1,000 in, so it cost us $4,000 in total. We made a 6 episode or 8 episode. I don't remember how many. And it ended up being about 48 minutes of finished footage. I think it's 8 episodes. And we went to the Emmys with it, and we got 2 different actors shortlisted on the Emmys nomination ballot with like Anya Taylor-Joy and what's her name from Gone Girl?
Oh, Rosamund.
Rosamund
Pike.
Pike. Yeah.
Pike. Yeah.
And we
Amazing.
got invited to all the FYC events and got to meet the showrunners of all these shows and be seen as peers, also campaigning for an Emmy for our thing. And so it instantly, like this tiny little project, put us on a peer level with,
Big time. Yeah.
all the people you wish you
Want
would
to be
meet in
with.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
AJ, so smart. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I spend most of my time on Instagram. My personal account is at Aaron J. Rome, all spelled out, AARONJAYROME. And then One Grand Film is the other that's my company where I spend all my time, and that's just like it sounds, One Grand Film. And that's on Instagram as
.com.
well. You can go to
Okay.
onegrandfilm.com. And yeah, the courses are there. The program is there.
So is the course is online and you're meeting virtually once a week?
Yeah, exactly. So if
So
you come over the
anybody in the
program,
world can do this. Everything's
exactly.
recorded.
Yep,
Yeah.
everything's recorded. Everything we meet digitally via Zoom twice a week right now. You do get one-on-one calls with me as well, so I help you actually. I like to dig my fingers in as deeply as I can to everybody's project to make sure that it's not going to be a waste of time when they get on set, that they got all the information that they need,
Yeah.
that their script is completely bulletproof, that they've got a co-producer and actors that they can rely on, and that kind of thing. Really just try and give as much support to the filmmakers as possible to ensure that they get these films done, because that's the whole point.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I always ask people, but I mean, you've already told me so many different things, but maybe you've got something else in your pocket.
Yeah.
The name of the show or the podcast is Act Bold. So what is a time in your life that you've acted boldly and something amazing has happened?
Here's a good one so a story from End Trip. So it was my first time raising money for anything, so I had investors involved, and we had heard the common belief that I think is a true belief that a film is more valuable if it has a name attached.
Yeah.
So we jumped through a bunch of hoops to get a name attached, and we got this guy who had been on a TV show and clearly had a career that was going in the right direction. And we met him through my co-producer, my best friend, Dean West, who was starring in the film. And we got him on the film. We went through his agent. We did everything the right way. We brought him to New Orleans where we were shooting the film. We were driving him to the hotel where he was going to stay while we shot. And then he said, you know what? Why don't I just stay with you guys? Like, he used the words bro out. We'll bro out. We'll make a film. We'll do it in 5 days. It'll be amazing. We said, okay, awesome. So we shot for the first day, and we got off to a slow start. We had 2 cameras. We had a camera assistant who was trying to help. We had some tech issues, and I think he was just a little bit used to working on big studio things and having PAs and second seconds following him around and cushy trailers and stuff like that. But when we showed up for day 2, he was nowhere to be found, even though he was staying in the house with us. And so we were all out searching for him. He had gone to the gym, and we were looking and looking and looking for this guy, and he just ghosted us completely. We reached out in every way, and like I said, we knew him. We had a relationship with him prior to this, so it wasn't just like he just showed up there one day and had no idea who we were. And he just disappeared. He disappeared off the map. And I had a choice in that moment to either scrap the film, push it down the road, recast the role, waste a lot of money to try and come back and do it again, or call the investors and say, hey, I know this role better than anybody. I wrote it myself. I never planned on being in the movie, but I can step into literally the driver's seat in the movie, and we can reshoot everything we missed yesterday. And the investors said, I think you'll be great. And so I ended up the lead in that movie, and was never supposed to be, but we shot it out and finished it. And I think the movie ended up a lot better for it, but it was definitely one of those scary, like, the world is crumbling, what do I do? Circumstances that, it just took acting bold
Yeah.
to get through.
Yeah. I think we all need those moments in our lives to show us what we're capable of.
Yeah, it's easy. in a film scenario to think that everything is falling apart and kind of
Mm,
catastrophize about things. But I think the beauty of the film industry is that it's built on art, and art requires you to be adaptable and adaptive in moments of chaos. And art is always better if it happens in chaos. And if it doesn't, that means it's probably not that interesting.
mm.
And so on this last film we did, we actually had a tornado halfway through the production that wiped out our power and water and knocked down a bunch of trees, and we almost
Wow.
lost half the film to that. And just kind of stayed the course and ended up finishing and getting everything in the can. But I guess all of that is just to say, like, nothing in this career is going to come easy, but it's all
Mhm.
so much more rewarding because of it. And if it was easy, everybody would do it.
That is, I can't top that. I think that's a great place to stop.
Um,
AJ, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. You've been so generous with your knowledge and with explaining how it works and all of that. People, if you are interested in creating your own feature film, first of all, let us know in the comments. And if you have plans to go out and do this, definitely tag AJ, tag me, let us know so we can follow you. And until next time, you all stay your bold and beautiful selves. Bye bye.